I want to start today's episode with a question. What if the biggest thing holding you back right now isn't your schedule? What if it isn't your resources or even your competition? What if it's a single sentence? A sentence that you've been repeating over and over in your mind for years. Maybe it sounds something like this. I'm not smart enough to do that. Or I don't have what it takes to get promoted at this job. Or it could even be something like, it's too late for me to do anything meaningful with my life. Maybe those thoughts or other thoughts like that are running through your mind regularly. Well, let me tell you the dangerous part about that. You can start to think these thoughts so frequently that you don't ever really question if they are real or not. Well, today we're going to expose those thoughts, and I'm going to give you 2 simple steps to break those limiting beliefs. Well, welcome to the Reese Cagle Leadership Podcast. It is so good to have you here and to talk about leveling up our lives and our leadership. My hope is that in our short time together today, I can add value that's going to help you in your growth journey as you move forward. Well, like I already mentioned, we are actually going to address limiting beliefs and how they're holding us back on that journey. But I think a great starting point is probably for us to define what is a limiting belief. That way we're all on the same page as we go through this. So here we go. A limiting belief is a story that you're telling yourself. One that sounds true, it feels true, but ultimately it isn't true. And those stories, they cap our potential. They actually shape how we're showing up. And sometimes they can even keep us from not trying at all. It can make you feel like an imposter. You ever felt that way before? You have these beliefs that make you feel like you shouldn't be here. Well, I want you to know you're not alone. Research suggests that 70% of people experience imposter syndrome at some point in their lives. And if you don't challenge those limiting beliefs, they can actually take hold in your mind, keeping you feeling that way. If you don't question them, they're going to live in your head for so long that you just assume that they're facts. Well, that can end today. Because today we're going to raise the rent and we're going to kick those beliefs right out of our head. But before we talk about challenging beliefs, we need to understand why they matter so much. And the reason is because our beliefs, they drive everything downstream. In fact, many years ago, I learned it like this. Your beliefs drive your thoughts drive your actions, and your actions drive your results. So if you don't like your results, you don't start by changing your schedule. You don't start by changing your environment. You start changing what it is you believe. I actually had a mentor tell me one time that you are where you think you are because of the way that you think. And honestly, that's a hard truth to accept. It took me a while, but now I know it is true. Your attitude does determine your altitude. If you want different results in your life, you got to start thinking differently. Because growth begins when you start to think about what it is you're thinking about. Which means we have to identify the belief that is quietly holding us back, quietly holding us from the potential that we have inside of us. So let's look at 2 steps that we can use to conquer these limiting beliefs. But remember, these steps are simple, but they're not easy. It's going to take some real work. Step number 1, you got to name the belief. You can't change what you won't name. The way that I like to say this to leaders is you have to be aware before you can be intentional. Think of it like using your weather app on your phone. If you look at it before you leave the house, you might see that it's going to rain a little bit later today. Now that you're aware, you can be intentional about bringing a raincoat or about bringing your umbrella. But the lack of awareness, not checking the app, may lead to you walking around soaking wet. We have to raise our awareness. Now, there's no app that scans our limiting beliefs, so we got to do this by asking ourselves a simple question. Here it is. What belief might be holding me back? And then you got to be willing to spend some time and dig up the answer. If you need help, you can ask yourself a few other questions like, where do I feel stuck? Or where do I feel stagnant? Or where do I feel frustrated? These are all important because limiting beliefs often live in the areas of our life where progress feels hard. Let me give you a personal example. It's an easy one that illustrates this. For years, I used to say and truly believe this phrase, I'm not a runner. I avoided running whenever I could. So when my family or my wife, Lindsay, wanted to sign up for a 5K, I didn't want to be a stick in the mud, so I did it. But running felt like a chore. It was so hard just to get through the race. I still remember that feeling of dread that I would get right before the race started. But over time, I started to realize something. That belief wasn't true. But it was driving my thoughts, which were driving my actions, which were producing my results. And if you're wondering what those results were, it was a very poor 5K time. But as John Maxwell puts it, how you view things is how you do things. And I believed running was hard. So it was hard. And what I found was that before anything could change, I had to name that belief. I had to dig that belief out, that I was constantly telling myself that running was hard. And once I dug it out, it led me to step 2, which is reframing the belief. You see, naming it isn't enough. You have to rewrite it. You have to name it and then reframe it. So instead of saying, I'm not a runner, I began to tell myself, I am a runner, and I'm getting stronger with every mile. Now, did that instantly make it easier? No way. But it did change the story that I was telling myself. And the 5Ks turned into 10Ks, and the 10Ks turned into half marathons. And last year at age 40, I ran my first full marathon. Because I'm a runner, and I get stronger with every mile. And that not only stretched my belief, it also stretched my capacity to run. Because now a 5K feels like a walk in the park compared to 26.2 miles. Here's what I want you to know. When you change the story, you can change the direction of your life. So let me ask you, what would it sound like if you reframe your negative belief in a positive way? What would that sound like? I want you to take a minute and I want you to think about it. And I want you to rewrite it. Whatever belief came to your mind, I want you to think about it and I want you to rewrite it because this is going to influence the action that you're going to take. I love how James Clear in his book Atomic Habits says that every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become. When you change your belief, you start casting different votes. Different votes create a different identity, and a different identity leads to different results. Now, let me take a moment and give you a few common limiting beliefs that I hear often. Here's number 1. I'm not ready yet. It's too soon. Number 2 is I don't have enough time to get everything done. Number 3, I hear this one a lot. I'm not a good speaker. And number 4, if I fail, it'll prove that I'm not good enough. Let me say this again. These are not true. These are stories that you're telling yourself, stories that are keeping you stuck, but you don't have to stay stuck. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to take 15 minutes and I want you to get alone. I want you to take a walk, go to a quiet place, but you need space to reflect on where you are in your life and in your journey right now. And then I want you to identify 3 limiting beliefs that are holding you back from where you're meant to go, that are holding you back from who you're created to be. Trust me, you're going to know these when you see them. I want you to write them down. Don't try to justify them, just name them. Just put them on the paper because then you're going to reframe them. You're going to take I'm not ready yet and turn it into I grow by starting, not by waiting. Or you're going to take I don't have time and make it I make time for the things that matter most. Taking this challenge of getting alone and reflecting, something that I believe is going to launch you into doing intentional thinking. And one of the things I've seen over and over again is intentional thinking is what drives intentional action. Now, as we wrap up for today, let me reinforce the thought that limiting beliefs are not going to disappear on their own. If you discover them and don't do anything about them, they will stay there. But they will lose power if you name them, if you challenge them, and if you replace them. As Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So make sure you think you can. Well, thanks for listening to today's episode. As always, if you feel challenged or if you feel like this episode helped you, I would just encourage you to share it with someone else who might need it, because it's always better to grow together. Now, I want you to go out in the world and I want you to keep leading on purpose. I'll see you soon.